So, thank you so much for watching this video. If you are new here and you have not yet subscribed and clicked the bell, please do. We really appreciate you watching this video, this podcast. Again, if you are new, it is just a conversation between me and my brother. We are indie filmmakers. We aspire to become good, great filmmakers. But of course, every big endeavor like that is a process. And so we take this podcast to talk about filmmaking stuff, movie stuff, ideas, maybe some thoughts about entrepreneurship as we're starting our own entertainment company, and also just kind of random stuff, I guess. But today we are going to be talking about filmmaking stuff, and we, if I haven't mentioned, we are brothers.
We are. Everybody knows that. They can tell.
All right, so I wanted to ask you, and we're going to talk about this, so feel free to explain your thoughts. Don't jump right into it too much, but unpack your ideas about what you think is the most important thing, the most important part to making a movie. The most important thing about making a movie, period.
Okay.
And we're not generalizing. We're getting pretty dang specific. And we haven't talked about this, so we both have our own ideas.
I know what you're going to say when you say, like, the most important thing. You're talking about, like, the process of making a film, correct?
Yeah, but the thing is, we have to specify. Making a film is an ocean of stuff to do. You have, like, equipment. What kind of equipment? What kind of lenses? How big is the crew? How much money do you have? I mean, there is... how you act, writing a script, everything is so big.
My opinion, just right off the bat, just not even thinking about it, I would say the camera, just the camera. Because you could literally make a film with no sound, just a camera pointing at anything, and someone could watch it and enjoy it. Mm-hmm. They could get something out of it. They could get entertainment from it. So I would say the camera, shooting at something. It could be any camera. It could be a film camera. It could be black and white. It could have color. It couldn't have color. It could be really blurry, but you could still make out a picture. Just imagine people back in the day, they had no sound, they had black and white film, and they still watched it because they enjoyed it and they got entertainment out of it. So if we want to go back to the roots and say what's the most important thing
about a movie,
just generally, I would say the camera.
Really?
Yes, just right off the top of my head. Would you agree?
Well, you jumped right into it, right when I said don't jump right into it. No, I don't agree.
Okay. What would you say is the most important thing? I know
I'm not going to say that. I'm gonna counter your statement.
Okay,
We're talking about movies. If you don't have a camera, you draw pictures and you draw a bunch of them and you line them up.
Okay.
You can make a movie and you can figure out how to entertain someone with a series of motion pictures in some fashion. Doesn't matter how you do it. Claymation, and maybe you draw a claymation. I mean, I don't know. You can do a whole series of stuff. I do not think, although I took a harsh thing when I said, no, I don't agree with that. Okay.
Yeah.
Making a movie involves a lot of stuff, as I just said. Making a movie with a camera is very important because a camera is kind of the center point of a movie. However, I think it is not the most important thing about a movie.
Okay, I'm not...
Okay, how do you define important? That's important to define.
Okay. I guess there's a lot of things that involves a movie, a film, all of the above.
Yeah.
Because you're saying we can do clay animation or just draw or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would agree with you. So a very important thing is the storyline.
Okay.
No,
I need you to define important.
important.
At least in the world of what we're talking
Something
about.
that you have to have to create something.
Okay. Yes, that's true. I think important in my mind with filmmaking, I don't know. Again, we're talking about what we each other think about it. So I'm not going to shoot down your answers, and you feel free to shoot down mine if you think it's trash.
Yeah.
But what I see as important in the idea of filmmaking, as in what makes it good, what gets it to something great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What is it that is going to, because the world of filmmaking is based around entertainment, information being consumed, usually for the purpose of entertainment. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to make it watchable to people. You have to make it good. You have to make it enjoyed. Otherwise, people can watch it and it was a movie, but it wasn't any good.
Yeah.
And so I define important as what makes it at least watchable for the audience, because the audience is the most important person in the entertainment industry. Because if they don't like it, then what's the point of doing it? You know, and that's counter to the artist idea. Every artist is like, oh no, I do it for me. But ultimately, especially in filmmaking, you might enjoy filmmaking, but you're doing it for your audience, and that's very important to understand.
Yeah. So, not just saying like that. I understand what you're saying, but a good storyline, because a good storyline will help that keep the audience into the film, that get them engaged. Just enjoy watching it because there's ups, there's downs, there's a good story. If it wasn't filmed great, that's gonna be a little bit for it, but it can be filmed, like I said, black and white, no sound, and if there's still a good story, they can be still engaged with it.
Yeah.
So I would agree with what you're saying.
I haven't said what I think is the most important thing yet.
Well, I would agree with everything you've said so far.
Okay. How much time do we have on the clock?
We have time. It's relative.
Okay. So I've talked about what I define as important. And we've talked about you thinking what's important, then you backed away from it. I think... Okay, I'll say what I believe is important. I think it is the story. But getting deeper than that, the most important thing is aspects of a story. It's not just a story itself. You can make something really interesting, but then you're going to end up with something like, I don't know, off the top of my head, John Wick, you know? You know what I mean? It's a really cool story. It's really action-packed, but ultimately you watch it once, twice, and you're good.
Yeah.
What's going to please your audience the most? And honestly, in the entertainment industry, if you please your audience and you have a really strong fan base, that fan base usually ends up being considered geeks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a part of it. But I think in our work and what we're interested in doing, we are in the business of creating geeks for our work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I would agree.
I think not just a story, not just a good story, but parts of a story are the most important. Let's get down to what I'm talking about. Specifically, what do you think it is in films that we find so engaging? And you don't have to have the right answer. I always put you on the spot on these podcasts and ask you questions that I'm not thinking about. But from your perspective, what do you think might be the most engaging thing in...
Yeah, I would say a story, but let me get into why I say story. I mean, I've talked about in the past things that I enjoy. They're things that have backstories that if you know the backstory, you can get into the story a lot more. I like a lot of like Steven Spielberg or like hidden movies that he's done because he throws back to other films he's done, or like Inception. You have to read into it, and you can think about like plot stories that are in it that weren't actually the main story, but like could be extra things that you could add on to make it more interesting. as extra things I've talked about in the past. Like his wedding ring was the token of how you know if he's in a dream or not. Things like that is what keeps me engaged as a filmmaker or as someone who enjoys watching movies.
So you like the subtle details
That
not everyone knows about.
that nobody knows about, or not everybody knows about, and
Few people know about.
makes it more depth to it.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Gives a
depth
lot
to
more
it.
depth. I mean,
Hidden secrets.
I mean,
That's redundant.
it's like a lot of things in life. If you put a ton of time into it, even if you're like trying to create something, even if it's not part of the story, but if you take time to develop it more, to give it more character, a lot of people do that with like characters who aren't that important. They give them a backstory and they're like, okay, this person, they had this, they grew up doing this and this, and they give them a story. It's not relevant to the story we're watching right now. But if they give them more character, if they, like, we talked about pirates before on this channel. If a pirate has, like, a patch, why, a lot of people like to say, like, okay, that character, he has a patch. Why
does he have a patch?
Why does he have a patch?
What event took place?
Yeah, something in his life made him, if he got into a fight, he got it out because of torture. If he did, as something happened in his life that he has to wear a patch now.
Yeah.
That's not relevant to the story that we're watching at the moment when we watch a film. But it makes it so much more in depth, and you can get into the story more if that character has a backstory. It has meat to it.
Yeah. So you've talked your way into what kind of is going on in my mind.
Okay.
So you get down to specifics about what is it about a story that's important. Well, I think everything starts with your characters. Why is it important for the characters? It's because there's two things that characters, in my opinion, drive the interest level.
Yeah.
It is relatability and it's inspiration. So, relatability, the character has emotions, sad, happy, excited, fearful, all these different things. You relate to the character. If the character's not relatable on a human level, then we lose interest. Because that's the thing, that's just like the way humans have developed, man. We are interested in each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even if it's in a twisted way, we're interested in other people. And it's important. And that's why movie characters, if they're animals or something, or if they're just some artifact, we always tend to make them human-like. You know what I mean? The whole idea of 3D animation, Toy Story, Bug's Life, everything, they're human-like because we're interested in humans. And so characters are important for relatability. That's ultimately what's going to keep the interest of your audience. The other thing is inspiration. So you have to inspire your audience in some fashion. So obviously, why people love Jack Sparrow so much, like you talked about pirates, it's because he was always thinking ahead. He's always like not caring in the moment. He's very himself. He's very quirky, and he's also epic. He's brave. He does cool things, and everyone wants to be like him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's inspirational, and people love those kind of characters. People love those kind of people. And so relatability and inspiration. And ultimately, if you think about it and you start breaking up the idea of making a movie, then you start with a character. What about this character is important for the audience to relate to and be inspired by? Then you build a story around that character. Then once you have a story, you have a script, you have a screenplay. Once you have a screenplay and a script, you got to get money, and other people have to buy into those characters.
Yeah.
Then from there, you take time to
Create it.
Actors, get film crew, get editors, get lighting crew, capture the audio of what the actors are saying. They're acting like the characters that's been created. And so I think when it comes down to it, it's not as simple as a story. It's more about what is the characters inside that story and how do they relate and how are they inspirational. And even in some ways, a lot of people that's why I think it might be controversial, when people make movies about villains or something, or even something as simple as Godfather. You know,
Mhm.
Godfather is you're inspired to have that kind of power, and it kind of connects to your twisted, more, you know, more darker side of you, because you're like, oh, he's powerful, he can just snap his fingers and he can have someone killed, and he has all this money, he can just travel everywhere and gets all this respect, and people resonate with that, especially the Italian people. They care about respect, man. You know what I mean? And so
They give me
they give me no respect. They give me no respect.
Give me no respect.
I'm gonna kill you because you disrespected my mother. Anyway, it's so important, even on movies that are controversial, that like highlights more bad behavior or villains in some case. There is a aspect of inspiration in those films, and they might be inspirational for the bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's why they might be controversial. You have to be able to separate as an individual. You have to be able to say, okay, I'm not going to let this, cause me to do something crazy with my personal life. But you can't deny that even darker figures have some form of inspiration and at times relatability. Think about Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is characters that are just bad and good and bad and good and bad and good, And so it's so incredibly important. But the thing why that's so successful is because their characters are so relatable. It's so easy to get inspired, but especially relatable, because everyone is good and bad at different points in their life, and it's very believable, and it's not clean cut. You know what I mean? So when it comes down to it, I think we're about wrapped.
Yeah, probably.
In my opinion, I think the most important thing for a movie is the character's relatability and their inspirational factor. The character before the story.
Yeah, I would agree with that too.
But just as a closing note,
I kind of added to it with what I said as like a backstory. But
no, that's a part of it.
Yeah.
You can bring those things to the character that brings the character to life. And it also allows actors to have something to work with. You know what I mean? When they're acting on the part, the character. That's very important. I didn't talk about that because you kind of said it already. But it's very important to have elaborate backstory for the characters that you've created. And think about, like, with the short film we just did, Rebooted, we just reviewed. We didn't make it. The short film we just reviewed a couple weeks ago or last week or whatever, it doesn't talk. It's not even a person, but they pull the emotions out of the character, and you feel sympathetic and sad, and you laugh, and you feel angry with him, and you're, like, upset. It's because he has human qualities. Yeah. And he's just a stop-motion animated character, but he has human qualities and is a well-thought-out character, and so you relate to him.
Yeah, I would agree. So, to end this off,
once again, thank you for watching the video.
Yep.
Subscribe if you have not already. We appreciate your subscriptions and your bell hittings.
Are we going to talk about the other channels yet?
Nah.
Okay. We'll save it for another time.
Save it for another time. Anyways, appreciate it.
And have a good day.